This is Troy TrojanVision One-on-One. Today's featured guest, Troy University faculty member Joe McCall. Now, here's your host, Aaron Taylor.
Welcome to TrojanVision One-on-One. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor, and this is an opportunity for us to get to know members of the Troy University family one-on-one. And my guest for this episode is lecturer here in the history department, Joe McCall. Joe, thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking me.
And an opportunity to get to know some of the individuals that make up the fabric of the Troy University family here. And want to get to know a little bit about you and the many hats you wear and have worn during your time here. But before we get into a lot of the things that you're involved with and have been involved with on campus, let's know about you and how you got here, the path that brought you here to Troy.
Well, it was a circuitous and unusual route. One of the things I share, I teach the Alabama history class, and first day I always share with my students that I said, some of you in the class, I'm your granddaddy's worst nightmare come true, a damn Yankee come down to teach history. That makes them very nervous, especially since I don't have much of a Southern accent. But then I very quickly point out that all my people are from Alabama, and just using the term people makes them comfortable. All my family was either from Auburn or the Opp area, but my family moved north when I was 5 to the New York City metro area. I grew up there all the way through high school. And I had a strange life in some respects, which ties into part of the work that I do here at Troy. I try to help out with kids that have drug and alcohol problems. And it was in New York that I became gradually aware, as the years went by, that my family was affected by alcoholism. And so one of the other things I share in my classes, in my survey classes and my upper level classes, is I always share with my students that I am a recovering alcoholic. And I think that's important because our students need to know who they can turn to. And even though that's a small part of or at least one of the small hats I wear at Troy, I think it's one of the most important. But anyhow, I wound up leaving New York and coming back south briefly. I started college at Emory. But then very quickly transferred and moved out west, and then wandered around the country for a number of years. I had an interesting experience in life, as many people did in the late 60s and early 70s. But then after spending a lot of years as a drug and alcohol counselor, working mostly with young people, I decided that I'd done that long enough. At that point, I was living in Ohio. I was a single parent. My son was in high school. And I decided at the same time that he was ready to leave high school that I wanted a different experience. And so he and I decided to take a year adventure, and we hiked the Appalachian Trail. And it was sort of symbolic, and it ties in with eventually winding up at Troy. Because most people start in Georgia and hike north in the spring. We started in the dead of summer in Maine and started south. We didn't quite finish. We made it 1,700 miles.
Still quite a lot.
It was quite a hike, but winter set in. Again, even though it was the south, when you're up at 4,000 or 5,000 feet, it can get cold.
Pretty cold.
And then after that, I went back to school, which had been my plan. I was ready for a career change. I went to Idaho State briefly and got an undergraduate degree in American Studies, and then was accepted into the graduate program at Auburn, which had been my goal. I wanted to come back home. I was tired of winter. One morning I woke up in Idaho and it was 26 below zero, and that was without wind chill, and I said never again, and I've stuck with that.
You don't really get that in Alabama.
No, no, except for the one snowstorm we had a couple of years back. But when I finished my oral and written exams at Auburn, I got an email. And the email was from my department chair saying there was a temporary full-time position available at Troy. I came down and interviewed thinking that it would be just a good experience to get an interview under my belt. because it's very hard to get any kind of position in history in academia. And they hired me. And at first it was to serve as a temporary fill-in for a professor that was very ill, Kit Carson, who I wish I'd gotten to know. I've heard wonderful things about him. He passed away, and but then another professor got pregnant, so they asked me for a second semester. And then that was it.
Been here ever since?
Oh, no. In fact, the road was supposedly over at that point.
Oh, really?
Because it was just a temporary full-time position. And right at the same time, my son and his wife had been teaching for 1.5 years in Taiwan, teaching English to little kids. And it had been about 10 years since our Appalachian Trail journey, and my son called up and said, look, Pops, why don't we go on another journey? And what he proposed was that we start in Singapore and go by land all through Southeast Asia and go around the world. We took 4.5 months. We traveled incredibly cheap. Some hotel that's treating it more graciously than it was. Some of the boarding houses and hostels we stayed in were $2-3 a night. But we managed to go from Singapore through Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, China, and then in Beijing, we got on the Trans-Siberian Railroad and rode it to Moscow, which was an amazing journey because it was the dead of winter too. Not too many people on the train. It's not a popular time to travel through Russia. But then we came down through Eastern Europe to Italy, and then I flew home. It was a 4.5-month journey that later became important. But the tie-in with Troy was I came back to, as I was traveling back to my sister's home down in Santa Rosa Beach, I stopped to visit my friends in the department who I'd been corresponding with on Facebook. In fact, some of your viewers will remember Nathan Alexander. And Nathan was a wonderful person, a fellow New England transplant like me. In fact, I'd loaned him my old pickup truck so that he could get street cred as a Southerner. So I stopped in to see everybody. And Bryant Shaw, who was the chair at the time, said, let me see you when you're finished visiting with everybody. And he said, we need you again. And again, I was hired as a temporary full-time replacement. And so each year, which was kind of unique to my experience at Troy, each year it was a question whether I'd come back. Each year I sweated it out, and oddly enough, the years kept racking up. So Troy became my home. Eventually I was named senior lecturer in the history department. I just passed the magic moment for somebody my age who isn't tenured, and that is that I just got vested in the Alabama State retirement, which is a great feeling of security. But Troy has become my home in many, many ways. So that's a long way of answering your question, how did I wind up at Troy? That was it.
A long and winding story and path. A lot of experience that some people probably will never get to experience, but you get to take those experiences and pass them on to your students. Obviously, history and making those trips and being in places that are historical, you can share those things with your students in class.
Right. It's made a huge difference in terms of my lecturing. I primarily teach world history and then my one upper level each semester. And all that traveling really did help. In fact, this summer, I got to go back to China for the first time since that trip. And this time I got to go to a place that I refer to as being one of the things on my bucket list. I didn't quite make it to Tibet, but I made it to the Tibetan Plateau. I was invited to give a series of lectures at the Northwest University for Nationalities in Lanzhou, China. And I got to travel further west from there, up into the Tibetan Plateau. It was a wonderful experience, but I also got to expand my horizons even more. And every time I travel, just as every time you read a really good book, whether it's a good piece of historic fiction or a monograph or textbook, you always learn something new. And I'm not the greatest scholar in our department. I'd be the first to admit that. But I have a great passion for teaching, and I love storytelling. And so now I have some more stories to tell the kids about the Silk Road, and a little bit more about China, especially the part of China that hasn't modernized quite as much as cities like Beijing and Shanghai.
And while we're on the topic of international
Yeah.
and make your travels, one of the things you're known for outside of history is being the advisor for ISCO, the International Student Cultural Organization, which is an organization here on campus that provides social opportunities and involvement opportunities for the international students here on campus. And tell me a little bit about how you got involved with ISCO and became the advisor. You've been for 4 years now, right?
Yeah, about 4 years. I kind of lose track. The older I get, the less I'm great at dates. But yeah, I think will be the beginning of my 4th full year as advisor. The international community here is one of the reasons why I love being at Troy. I'm going to deviate just for a second and add to that list our arts program. Both visual arts and performing arts are real important. It's one of the reasons why I love living in Troy, because I live in the city. Is I get to go to some amazing performances, and not to sound like a New York snob, but I grew up in New York and used to visit Broadway and see lots of shows. And while I won't say we're like Broadway, it certainly is one of the best parts of living here at Troy. But another part of living at Troy that I really enjoyed when I moved here, I was a bachelor and was fortunate enough to move into university apartments. I guess not too many kids get married anymore, but they allow faculty to live there. And so I lived there for, I guess, 6 years. And while I was living there, one of the groups of people that I started to get to know were the visiting Chinese scholars, because at that point they were frequently housed in the university apartments. And part of it was most of them came over without a vehicle, without driver's license. So I had a van that could carry 7 extra souls, and so frequently I'd take them to the store, I'd take them to little trips into Montgomery, and I became friends with those scholars that came over to visit. After a couple of years of that experience with the Chinese scholars, I was living upstairs in one of the buildings, and a visiting scholar, an English professor, came over from China and was living downstairs. And a long and beautiful story short, Sylvia and I, Sylvia Lee, who's the coordinator for the Chinese programs here now, we met each other, became friends at first, and then became sweethearts and got married. So that was one of the important connections with the international community. I'd frequently had international students, especially in my world history survey classes. I'd gotten to know some of those young people. And then Darlene Stewart, the dean of the international programs, asked me if I'd be interested in taking over as advisor to ISCO. At that point, I was already advisor to NAACP, which I'd done for many years. I, for a while, did both. Fortunately, LaCarrie Mack came to Troy and took over as the director, or as the faculty advisor to NAACP. And that then allowed me to shift all of my sort of extracurricular attention to the ISCO program. ISCO, as the name implies, it's the International Student Cultural Association. And one of the things, or organization, one of the things that is so critical to that is it's an organization that attempts to bring students from many different cultures together and then to share those cultures. It sort of serves as an umbrella organization for all of the international students, And we get together, we meet on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. We've shifted locations as our numbers have gotten larger. We now meet at Howell Hall, 7 o'clock Thursday nights. And what we do is we try to bring these various students from different cultures together to learn about each other's cultures. So we learn about things like food customs. We examine the kind of music that they like, clothing, language. And so ISCO is a place where you can learn about cultures and as diverse as we are, and the numbers change and shift just a little bit, but rule of thumb that I use is about 70 different countries that are represented here at Troy. Between 850 and 950 international students. One thing I share, I always go during the summer to the impact sessions where they all the different clubs set up in the ballroom and students come around. And I was raised by a salesman. And even though I tried capitalism for a while as a salesman, I was pretty good at selling, but I wasn't happy. But one thing my dad taught me was don't be shy to go up to somebody and pitch them on your idea. And so one of the things I do as students are walking around, and these are almost entirely the American students that'll be coming, is I go up to them and ask them a question. On this recent trip to China, I bought a Tibetan prayer bowl, and it looks like a mortar and pestle. So I always ask the students, well, what do you think this is? And they'll say, oh, it looks like a mortar and pestle. And I say, well, that's a good answer, but it's wrong. Because if you take this wooden stick and turn it, it starts to sing.
Oh, okay.
And it makes this incredibly loud and lovely sound that's used in Tibetan Buddhist prayer rituals. And that's the segue. And then I say to those kids, and here's where we get back to the numbers at Troy. I say to them that, about 1 out of every 8 or 9 or 10 students sitting next to you in your classes are going to be from a different culture. And I emphasize a lot of things that the chancellor emphasizes, that the international program emphasizes, that we emphasize here at Troy, is that this is a place to come and learn about other cultures. And I emphasize with our American students that it's a chance for them to develop skills that'll be necessary in the global economy and in the global culture that we now have. You can't look at music today or literature or art, film, any number of different things that all involve an international dimension. So I try to emphasize to the American students, and this has been one of our big goals at ISCO the last 4 years, is to increase our American involvement. It used to be that at our weekly meetings we'd have 15, 20, maybe 25 international students and 1 or 2 or 3 American students. Now our numbers on a sort of typical Thursday are up to between 75 to 125 kids, and about, I'd say 40% of those are now American students. So ISCO serves as an umbrella organization to represent all the international students and the domestic students. It's important that our international students know we have individual country organizations, which are real important: the Chinese Student Association, the Vietnamese Student Association, the Nepalese Student Association, the Indian Student Association, and all of these are vibrant groups. And we cooperate with them. We try to enhance each other's experiences. And so one of the things I share with the new students at the Impact Session is this is a chance for you to learn about cultures that will not only enhance your worldview, but will also help you in your later occupation, because you can't get a job today, or it's very difficult to get the kind of jobs that we train students for at Troy, where they won't have an international component. So ISCO now, that's all the bells and whistles of ISCO. What does it mean to me? And I'll get emotional with this. It means that I get to know students from around the world in a number of different important settings. I get to know them because my wife and I invite them over to our house, and we serve probably 200 students a year at our house. And usually those are small dinners, maybe 6, 8, 12 people. And we'll sit at the table, and it won't be unusual to have a student from Tibet, a student from Vietnam, a student from China, a student from Ukraine, a student from Turkmenistan, all sitting around eating dinner. The advantage of this, I think, in terms of the international students that belong to ISCO, is that it allows them to meet students from another culture and to get to know them well, especially the international students that don't come from our large populations. You know, the Chinese students, certainly they've got their own organization, and they have hundreds of Chinese students to choose from to develop the friends that they have for their college experience. But if you're from Tunisia, or if you're from Turkmenistan, they're just a handful of students from your country. So what happens at ISCO is that these students get to know students from other countries. And the result of that is that I think here at Troy we have a unique situation because we are isolated. It's not a large urban area, which suits me just fine. The advantage of that in terms of our international students is that it forces them to connect with each other. And it may sound a little bit optimistic or dreamlike, but I think that we're doing a lot to build a better culture for the whole world here at Troy because we bring these students together and they get to know each other.
And building understanding between cultures.
And one of the things
in a small way.
Yeah, and one of the things I share with my students at ISCO is a little pet saying of mine that I learned from somebody else. And that was, if I get to know you, I'm going to love you. And I point out to them, they all have an uncle that's a pain in the rear, you know, that, oh my God, my uncle, yeah, what a difficult guy. And yet, you love that uncle, and it's because you know him. And one thing we try to avoid at ISCO is any kind of political wrangling, which certainly there's plenty of that that exists in the world. But instead, what we try to do is get to know each other. And consequently, we have students from countries who normally wouldn't get along with each other, who are developing friendships. And I think in the long run, that is one aspect of Troy's mission that we often overlook, is that we're allowing these international students to get to know other international students. Now, the other huge piece to it is that our American students can then get to know somebody from Vietnam. As an example, one of the students, couples that we have now is an American student that's married to a Vietnamese student, and they have a child. And that was our first baby member of ISCO. So it's real important to me. It's also something that my wife and I collaborate on together. So we celebrate, but we also get involved when things turn out poorly. My wife and I have served as the representatives for the university when people get injured. I've sat with parents who lost a child. So while parts of it can be difficult, it's all incredibly rewarding. And I'm about as happy occupationally as a person can be. And Troy has been a great spot for me to get older in. And it is starting to wear on me. We do, in ISCO, we do the ISCO Festival every fall, which is a huge event, serving dinner to 350 people and entertaining them on a shoestring budget. We take field trips together. I take my international students with my Alabama history class, and we go to places like the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Yeah, places that are world known.
Yeah.
But it's a student from Vietnam or China would probably never think is right in the backyard when they're here at Troy.
Well, and as we cross that bridge, typically, and I've been to the Jubilee a number of times commemorating Selma, I'll walk backwards and talk to the kids as we're crossing the bridge, and then we get to the other side where the monuments are. And it's a sacred moment. You know, when I take them to the Southern Poverty Law Center, to the fountain, and I talk about the experience. When we go up to Moundville and we talk about the Native American cultures of Alabama. When we go to Tuskegee, or I take them to Moton Field, where the Tuskegee Airmen trained. These are things they've watched movies about. And it gives us a chance to share that with them. But again, importantly, half the students on the bus are Alabama kids who are interpreting that history for our international students, getting to know them, and becoming friends.
Well, but also those Alabama students, some of them probably have not experienced some of these locations.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could grow up in Montgomery and maybe you've never gone to the MLK monument downtown, or you've never made the quick trip over to Selma. So you're not only opening the eyes of international students, but American students as well, who are living in a rich area of history. Yeah,
I recently, or a few years ago, got invited to speak at Tuskegee. And after I finished the lecture, the kid said, well, thank you so much for being part of our living history program, because I was involved in the civil rights movement in the Deep South when I was a young person. And it sort of caught my attention. I'm getting old. But part of it is I can talk about the days when I, as a young person, experienced the ugly side of Jim Crow prejudice. And international students are confused about that. And so one of the things that I think I do that is important here is I try to share with them the warts, the ugly side of that, but also where we've come so far and the work that we still have to do. And so it's a great place to be as an old guy, because I get to interact with our American students as a teacher. I get to get involved with kids who develop drug and alcohol problems, and that's something that's real important for people to know. You can just come to my door and knock, and I'll talk with you. But now the other dimension of being married to a Chinese scholar who now works at the university has been a great experience. We were able to meet in China this summer. She was in China for 6 weeks as part of her university outreach to Chinese universities, our partner universities. And we met in Beijing, and I got to go and meet her parents, her family, which was a real positive experience. But I couldn't end a discussion about my life here at Troy without emphasizing the role that my wife, Sylvia Lee, has played. She has taught me a great deal about other cultures. She's given me a renewed sense of hope about love. And we're truly partners here. And we do a lot of things that I think are important, but we're just one of many people on this campus that care.
Well, it's good to have someone like you as one of those many people that care, and obviously bringing a lot of personal experience and a lot of knowledge to students, both American and international, and it's good to have someone like you on campus, and we're glad that you shared your story with us here on this episode of Trojan Vision One-on-One. Joe, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
You take care.
And we hope you join us again for another episode of Trojan Vision One-on-One. My guest today has been Joe McCall. I've been your host, Aaron Taylor. Thank you for joining us.